Welcome to The World Today. I'm Waqas Majeed. Today we're talking about a very important topic very close to Pakistan, and that is, despite our best efforts, Pakistan has been placed on the FATF grey list. We're going to be talking about various aspects of this eventuality. To talk about this, I have in my studios my guests. First of all, we have Sheryar Khan Saab, and with him we have Shahid Kiyani Saab. Thank you very much, sir, for joining me for this conversation. But we'll continue with the debate right after this short break, and stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back after the break, and we've also been joined by Zia Banday Saab. He's with the Prime Institute. Joining me for the conversation is Sheryar Khan Saab with the Iqra University, and Shahid Kiyani Saab, former ambassador. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Sir, let's begin the conversation. Despite our best efforts, we were unable to get our names removed from the grey list. In fact, now we are solidly in the grey list, and now we have been given some extra time to meet the requirements of the FATF to prove that Pakistan is serious about curbing money laundering and terror financing. So, in your opinion, sir, do you think that this was a victory or a loss when it comes to the perception about Pakistan internationally?
Well, we couldn't say it's a victory for Pakistan, at least, because if you look at, the Pakistan's international standing, it has already been, we're suffering from that, bad image. And this is the last thing that Pakistan would want, to be put on that list. Where it's Pakistan is allegedly supporting terror financing, and it's in that grey list. And despite our efforts, Pakistan couldn't convince that 37-member body that Pakistan is not. Pakistan has done enough now. Has enacted regulations to weed out this terror financing. But somehow they are not convinced, and since we are on this list, so they would still watch us. And if Pakistan, takes further action, and satisfies the FATF, then Pakistan's name can be removed. In the past, we were also in the list, and our name was removed. But it is also linked with something else, and that is with our continuous, downward spiral of relationship with United States, and it was the United States which, initiated this move. And United States also convinced other member states.
And it was unprecedented because they had already concluded the discussion on Pakistan and the FATF,
yes.
And then the Americans convinced the Saudi Arabians to back away from support to Pakistan.
Yes, and China and Turkey also tried to stall the process.
But they couldn't.
But they need 3 members, to stall the process. And when they convinced Saudi Arabia, so China also told Pakistan and they backed out because, it won't matter then.
Yes.
I think, it's not only, a diplomatic, loss to us, but it also can affect our economy. Our economy, which is already in doldrums, the figures that the current account deficit is somehow now about $33 billion. Our exports are $22 billion. And we don't receive any aid from United States anymore. And if you look to our trade with the China, it's tipped. The balance is tipped in favor of China. So we badly need remittances.
But when we look at the balance of trade between the U.S. and Pakistan, it's tipped in our favor.
Yeah. And but still, it's minuscule.
It's very small.
It's
yes.
very small.
Just $1 billion.
It's very small. So Pakistan's economy is not doing well at the moment. And most importantly, we have an interim setup now, interim government. And for interim government, the priority would be holding of elections,
right.
Which is on 25th July. So it's the whole priority would be on the election. So the next government, it would be a challenge for them how to satisfy all these, member states and how to improve relationship with the United States. In fact, if they could, mend relationship with the United States, probably then we could see that United States, would lobby there, and in Pakistan would delist Pakistan from the grey list. So it's a lot depends on Pakistan's relationship with United States.
That's
and
a key
United
point,
States
sir.
has conditioned Pakistan performance with Afghanistan. So as long as United States is not getting the results it wants in Afghanistan, our relationship, I don't see that it's improving. And we have seen that in the past couple of years, especially this year, our relationship is not improving. It's the other way around. So
Right, absolutely. Let's also talk about the terrorism financing watchdog that took this decision. They argued, sir, that Pakistan has failed to act against terror financing on its soil. Do you think that's a fair assessment? Because Pakistan has taken a number of measures to curb terror financing on the soil. They've done quite a bit, in fact, but obviously not to the satisfaction of this organization. What's your point of view, sir?
First of all, the biggest challenge is we do not know what are the 26 points on which the FATF has been emphasizing for us to comply with. We do not know. I haven't seen in any of the newspapers or any of the websites what are those. Because if we know exactly what those 26 points are, we would be able to discuss it in a much better manner.
So I'll share them with you during the course of this program, sir.
Okay. Now, the thing is, sir, I agree in totality with Mr. Sheryar what he's saying, that there is a possibility, I'm sure there is a possibility of a political motivation in this whole setup that Pakistan have been complying and that they are not satisfied. However, sir, my opinion on this thing is, first of all, I think this interim government needs to be commended, that it sent an extremely competent team led by Dr. Shamshad Akhtar, who understands international financial institutions, how they work, and what are the politics involved in it, because he was governor of State Bank for a considerable long period and worked with international institutions. So I think we were in very good hands. The government did its best. But the other problem is of the not of what we have done against the proscribed groups. It is not that. It is the money laundering issue. The problem is that it is not that's only just been few months, maybe 6-7 months, when the Habib Bank branch in New York was closed down. And if you understand that it meant a lot for us. This was a bank. It's not only just a branch. It was a clearinghouse for all international transactions that Pakistan was doing. So, and that bank was not very careful in how the money was coming in and how the money going out. If you remember that this FATF was set up in '89, and what was the first casualty was BCCI. And these branches were in Latin America, where these the DEA, American DEA and others were monitoring these drug cartels, what they were doing, and money was being laundered, and BCCI couldn't defend, and it was the first victim. Now coming here, sir, what I have heard and what I have read is that the FATF or its monitoring branch is not satisfied that we are doing enough in curbing the money laundering, even though we have given them, the compliance report of what we've done in these 26 points. But it looks like, sir, there may be a political motivation. But then on the political motivation, as Sheryar Sahib has said, we will have to engage United States at the highest level. The first opportunity would be now, the Undersecretary of State is coming to Pakistan maybe in the next few days. And I think we should put it on the first agenda.
Of course, but her agenda is far more serious. She's coming to discuss peace in Afghanistan.
But then there are other members, sir, other members countries. And sir, what about, we do not know the role of China at this time and Saudi Arabia at this time, the latest decision which have been taken. What role did they, what opinion they hold on us? If they are also doubtful, then sir, I think political motivation may not be the right course, because then if your friends are not convinced, that means there is something wrong, there is something to be rectified.
Right,
so because if we just sit on our laurels that, okay, we have been saved from the blacklist and we are on the grey list, then much more needs to be done, and done in coordination with our friends and those.
And not just done, but perceived to
be done. Yeah,
absolutely.
Done.
That's the real problem over here, sir. Let's get the economic outlook from Banday Sahib. Banday Sahib, the financial system will be designated as posing a risk to the international financial system because of strategic deficiencies in our system, especially in terms of terror financing and money laundering. They will scrutinize Pakistan directly until they're satisfied. Now, how is that going to affect Pakistan's economic performance?
Okay, now we look at the size of the Pakistan economy as compared to the international economies. Pakistan is the sixth most populous country, but it's the 25th largest economy. If you look at that economic numbers, the 25 largest economies have a GDP of $96 trillion. Pakistan has a below $1 trillion. Look, it means that Pakistan has a share of about 1% of the global not global economy, but the 25th largest economies. Now, if you look at China and India and US, if you compare this, they almost hold about 45% of the total world's economy, these three countries. It means the weight is very important. Now, as my esteemed colleagues have highlighted, that there is a political angle to this also. And obviously what we need to understand is this, that what is the size of your economy where people will be compelled to take your side? If you are nobody in an international scenario on the economic end, why people or China is going to take your side? Now, China is not going to put their trade of over $500 billion with USA for the sake of Pakistan. You need to understand, despite of all this halabola of the CPAC thing, you need to understand that China has a trade volume of $100 billion with India. Now, they are the realities. As far as my colleague has talked about that there is a money laundering issue. Recently what happened, if you're following in the newspapers, Turkey has a problem with the USA, the Halk Bank. They have their manager in New York who was basically prosecuted, who has been indicted, and Halk Bank was being fined because of that Zareb, which was an Iranian Turkish citizen, where they do the money laundering for Iran through Turkish. But nothing happened with Turkey on that end. Now you need to understand that economy speaks itself.
Right.
You got my point?
Yes.
That is important for us to understand. So whatever policymakers are sitting, on the book which you are writing, on the procedures you are writing, that's good enough. More important, what are the political pulls? As they have rightly said, engage with USA, engage with India, engage with China, engage with EU. Put up your case. If there is some problem on the political land, please resolve it. Because if you are nobody on the economic side, your political nuance value will not be there. Look at Sudan, look at Somalia. Okay, as far as the blacklist is concerned, you have North Korea, you have Iran. Okay, we cannot reach at that level, I mean to say, of non-compliance. So as far as today is concerned, you are living in an increasingly competitive world. Now, each and every angle counts in this world. Now, it means that our trade is falling, you know it, our exports are falling. It means that anything which goes negative in your end is going to impact your foreign relations with
Yeah, recently Moody's also downgraded Pakistan's position. So
exactly. So
not only that, sir, I want to also ask you this question that would you agree with Miftah Ismail's contention when he was addressing the National Assembly in March this year? He said that being placed on the grey list is not going to affect the economy, but will only cause embarrassment to the country. Do you agree with this hypothesis, or this statement rather?
So why you're sending your, I mean to say, your finance minister to FATF? Why you're lobbying with the people? Why we taking it so lightly? I mean to say, this is a very non-serious attitude. If as a leader you are there to take certain stand, you are there to tell the all cost and benefit analysis to your citizenry, that what is going to happen with us. Already we are living in a very competitive world. Is every inch and every penny counts in it. So for example, if I'm the finance minister or the prime minister of the country, what is my duty? My duty is to make this country conducive for foreign investment and trade. This is my duty. I have to ensure that there should be no such sanctions coming on Pakistan. Our credit rating should be high. Tomorrow you're saying that if Moody's put us into junk, it's good for the paper only. Is that the way you deal things like that? I mean to say, we have to take this thing seriously. And I think so my colleagues have very rightly pointed out, we have to engage with bigger economies. We have to convince them. And if they desire certain things to be done, we have to do. We have to go for the opportunity cost. I mean, what is the opportunity cost to stick around with our old things, which are basically the main impediment of us to coming into the Committee of Nations? That is the question we need to ask and introspect among ourselves.
Indeed. Let's move on, sir. While this was happening, while the FATF deliberations were ongoing, there appeared a news item in the New York Times about some decisions being taken by the government to allow certain organizations to participate in the elections. What kind of an effect do you think, if any, did such reports appearing in the international press have on the decision that the FATF finally took?
If you look at the Western press, it always follows it takes its cue from the United States government. If you are in the good books of the United States government, you have good relationships, so a lot of things are swept under the carpet. But if you don't have very good relation there, and you will get the bad press there, the negative press all the time. And most of the negative things, they will be highlighted in their newspaper. If you follow these newspapers in the United States, you would see a story, printed every, week, in different newspapers regarding Pakistan's credentials as a, reliable partner or as a trustable partner in fight against terrorism. And a lot of different things which we won't want the world to know. They appear in such a press, so we won't get that good press when you don't have good relationship with the United States. And when such things happens, and it's really hard to defend then the case of Pakistan when such things are highlighted. For instance, so many incidents like the terrorists found in Pakistan, it's really hard to defend that because it's people may not look into the detail of the news, but when it makes the headlines and when there is a terrorism incident or a terrorist and it's linked somehow with the Pakistan, then it leaves an imprint or a perception in the minds of the people that somehow this country is responsible for all this stuff. So of course, it doesn't help the cause of Pakistan, and Pakistan should, if it wants really to, we need to improve our image internationally. So we have to take serious steps, and probably one of the colleagues said that we have to rectify some of our policies, and maybe it's not the time, now it's the time to overhaul the whole, undertaking that regarding terrorism and the different outfits in our own country, because you have to do the cost and benefit analysis. If you have to look whether certain organizations which may be important, which may not be anti-Pakistan, but if they cost you so much, are we ready for that cost? So have we done that rational calculation? And if it's not working now, maybe it's working in the past. So why not revisit those policies, and why not look for the larger interest of the country? And international standing is very important. One thing which which is quite important is that Pakistan probably lives in a region where the regional trade is the lowest in the world. All the regions in the world, the countries, they do trade with each other, but we don't do that trade. And probably we have now learned to live, without, engaging in any trade with each other. South Asian region is the lowest. We even, with Afghanistan, we had a growing trade, which is now, reducing day by day. And I feel sometimes we as a Pakistanis have become complacent with that. So what will happen? And we are okay on our own. Even that statement of ex-finance minister Miftah Ismail, when he said then it's not going to hurt us. It shows that non-seriousness in our attitude, that nothing's going to happen because we are not already engaged.
It's very apathetic.
Yeah, we are not already engaged in a very high trade with the world. So we've been living for 70 years with very low international trade, and we couldn't develop our economy. But we have to ask ourselves, if we don't engage in international trade, we don't consider it important, then how can we plug this, this deficit? And how can we resurrect our economy?
Questions, Khan Sahab, let me ask them now. Kiyani Sahab, one of the things that has come forward is that the country, Pakistan, is committed to proving to the world that we are ready to go the extra mile to curb money laundering, despite our reservations that this entire activity is politically motivated. But would you think, or would you say that in a way it is also a blessing in disguise that we are now on this list, because now we will have to make sure that we meet those 27 criteria that have been pointed out. So now being on the list puts Pakistan, or makes Pakistan responsible to carry out those tasks needed to get off the list. So in a way, sir, wouldn't it be good?
The thing is, as I was talking to you during the break, that once we sign on the dotted line in any agreement, international agreement, we are bound to abide by it. Now that these, the other, I'm sure when the finance minister comes back, she would have, she'll be briefing the Prime Minister and the Cabinet as to what the FATF and the members have advised us. Maybe what our friends has also advised us. This is, we are talking about countries which have put us under the spotlight, like Germany, UK, and the United States. The United States has its own agenda, I fully agree with you. But sir, we cannot prove it. I tell you frankly, if we live in this illusion that United States has a political agenda, and we keep on, thinking and keep on advising the government, okay sir, the political agenda, then sir, we'll be going nowhere.
All right, so we need to take a short break, and then
Okay.
when we come back, we'll continue with our conversation. So just take a short break, we'll be right back. Welcome back after the break. We are in discussion about Pakistan being placed on the FATF grey list. Sir, when we were talking about these issues, let's talk about the concerns that were voiced by the FATF. During various reviews, global bodies found deficiencies in supervision, enforcement of the AML and CFT controls by financial institutions, including money, services, and businesses. That's what they have claimed. But Pakistan's response was that FATF was informed that Pakistan has imposed roughly 1.7 billion rupees in penalties since 2015 on 31 banks for violating AML and CFT regimes. And also, Pakistani banks are no longer providing financial services to designated entities and individuals. So these steps have been taken, but they've not been accepted by the watchdog. Why is that?
So that means, sir, what I'm saying was that if we just sit, we just have that opinion that look, these are all political motivated, it will not take us anywhere. First, we will have to I'm just waiting for the government's, I trust that the government of Pakistan will issue an official statement as to what happened at Paris and what we were required to do. But sir, this also shows that there are certain lacunas in our system, in the monitoring system, in which we are unable to satisfy the FATF. Sir, please try to understand, Pakistan banking system is a rudimentary banking, I tell you. It's very good, there is no doubt that the common man is satisfied at certain stages.
Really?
No. It is a rudimentary. But at the same time, those who are monitoring our banking system must have found some loopholes. That is where these proscribed groups or groups of concern, let's be honest, concern, are getting the money laundered. Some are getting money from abroad, sir, because you look at the madrasas.
Yes, sir, we'll come into talking about all their concerns one by one, but I want to bring this question to Banday Saab. Banday Saab, the second concern that was voiced was that lack of progress on terrorism financing investigations and prosecutions, including the necessary coordination with provincial authorities, remain key concerns of the global bodies. The ICRG assessment was that Pakistan did not demonstrate cooperation between the federal and provincial authorities to prosecute terrorism financing commensurate with its terrorism financing risks. So how does one sort of decipher what's being said here, sir?
Actually, what I believe seeing is believing, okay? Whatever you put on the paper is not sufficient to satisfy the international community what you are highlighting, irrespective of whatever laws you have been made. What is important? The rate of indiction, the rate of prosecution in this country. How much people we have convicted for that, which we can show to the international community also. That is more important. How can I convince the international community that, okay, I have very good book, I've passed it through the assembly and everything. Now what's the next step? Now the important point is this, as we were talking about the banking sector also, okay? This banking sector is the money churning sector in this country, you know that. They've made a humongous amount of money and they've been supported by all the governments. Now as of today, if this is the condition of the banking sector, that you cannot stop it, so there is fundamentally something wrong in the system. That's what we need to address. I mean to say, you don't become blind just because of the figures which are coming on the profit side. The more important is the risk management ability of these banks. I tell you very frankly, this is no, I mean to say 1.7 billion rupees which you were talking about is nothing. The sort of an amount which has been imposed in America on banks, it's humongous.
Right.
It's into billions of dollars also.
Right.
Okay? So we need to understand the materiality of it.
So let me ask you the question I was asking Kiyani Saab earlier. Do you think that this might even be a silver lining for us, and that it might, help Pakistan, as has been said by previous governments time and time again, put our own house in order, so to speak? Might just be a catalyst to do that.
Unfortunately, we are more reactive than proactive. Is this a good strategy? Somebody hit you in your head, then only you move? You're living in an international
Seems to be
world.
the case, doesn't it?
You're living in an international world. The things are on the fingertip, on the internet. You can find out everything out there. And then you're talking about that, okay, somebody push me against the wall, then I start moving. But how much time you're going to waste into it? How much opportunities you're going to lose in it? Who's going to answer for all those things? That is an important question to ask. And that's where the head should roll.
Right. Okay, Sheryar Saab, let me ask you this question, that we also have this issue of terrorism. We also have this issue of social division. And the government has tried to address this, that by rehabilitation has been one method where wayward organizations or individuals have been brought back into the mainstream of society. They have relinquished or given up their arms against the state or an armed struggle against the country. Those organizations, what chances do they have for reintegration into society if they are always being targeted by such decisions of the FATF and so on and so forth? Isn't it necessary for Pakistan to also bring those people back into the mainstream rather than just kill them all?
Well, it's always, good to give, political exit to any, violent group, and if it could be, mainstream and accommodated in society. But to do that, you need to have certain kind of accepted model in that society. Now, I don't see any agreement being, made between these different groups and the state of Pakistan, in which clearly the group have said that they'll renounce violence or they will not be used and they will, be part of the mainstream. Have you seen this? We haven't seen such kind of an agreement. If there was such thing, if there was an agreement reached between them, an open agreement, and Pakistan then should have, taken its, friends, and its allies in confidence that, this is our way of dealing with the militancy and we are mainstreaming them. So probably they would have listened to your case, and we have seen there are different groups have reached agreements. For instance, in the break time, Ambassador was talking about the IRA, and also in the Philippines, the Mindanao, in Mindanao, the rebels there. So after a few years of intense negotiation, they reached an agreement. So have we reached an agreement? Because since you have not reached any agreement, you have not pledged anything, so you cannot showcase that to the world, that, or even to the people of Pakistan, that what mechanism are you applying of mainstreaming these groups? Because if you are not showing it to the world, then the world would still consider them as designated people, and they are designated people until and unless you have such kind of an agreements and mechanism in place, and then you also tell the case to your friends. So I think that's a big question, for Pakistan, how you gonna deal with such organization, because we have a plethora of organizations in Pakistan, and informally we keep hearing that some of the organizations which are not anti-Pakistan, we don't hurt directly Pakistan, for instance, through violence, but they may hurt Pakistan indirectly. You have to to look at that cost and benefit analysis in the long run. So who is doing that? Are we as a state or as a country, have we started that process of, settling that issue once and for all? For instance, one we are doing, those groups who are against, who are doing violence against Pakistan, we launched operations, and most of them we have eradicated, and they are now intelligence-based operations against, the remnants. But what about the other groups which we believe that they are not acting, against Pakistan? These are the groups which is the bone of contention between Pakistan and United States, between Pakistan and Afghanistan, and between Pakistan and India. And we live, in an international system where we rely on all the countries. We can't live in isolation because we're not a self-sufficient country. So we have to rely on all this powder. You have to observe and follow international norms, or at least international law. And if you follow them, then probably you would be accepted as, you know, a responsible country in the Committee of Nations. But unless that's not done, we need to, you know, to come out clean on all these issues. If we are mainstreaming them, it's good, I think. But how are we doing it?
That's
you know,
important.
we don't know the details of that.
Well,
I want to add Waqas
Please.
what he has said. Actually, this is important to understand. All these proscribed terrorist organizations, they have their political aims. It means that they have to be incorporated into the political system. Now, looking at Pakistan, which is a country of about 207 million people, I mean to say you have a very centralized this structure, governance structure. Now, how you can incorporate these people? Because
that has been one of the objections that
Yeah.
they voiced, that the coordination between the provinces and the center is not adequate.
Now, the point is this, are we using our local government system to the hilt? How can we incorporate these people to be the part of the real? They are not going to put down their arms.
That's an excellent point, sir.
And going to open a shop to start selling flour or other things. What is important for them? Make them a part of that political system. Give them that empowerment. Give them that sense that these resources will be redistributed. We have seen the far-right organizations in Europe or even in Africa, which we have seen, how they were being made part of the mainstream. You cannot make everybody a prime minister. Okay, give them some crumbs. Give them a part as a sense. Now that is a big dilemma of this country, that we all talk about democracy, but when you talk about deepening of democracy, your hands go cold.
That's a very, very good point, sir. Concern number 3, let me bring this to
Yeah.
Kiyani Saab. Kiyani Saab, the global bodies have also shown concern, and you were talking about this earlier, and that is the lack of measures to prevent illicit cross-border transportation of currency, the lack of cooperation with customs on preventing illicit cross-border movement of cash. The global body's assessment was that there is a serious risk of bulk cash smuggling across the borders, including related to the existence and operation of UN-designated individuals and groups. Now, the problem is that when we talk about the cross-border movement of large amounts of cash, that's where Pakistan's efforts to fence the border also start to play an effect. And we've seen the kind of problems Pakistan has been facing in trying to achieve this goal. So, sir, shouldn't that have been taken into consideration?
The thing is that we start from a very positive thing. You see, we have been talking on this, or rather, I've been the biggest supporter of fencing the border between Pakistan and Afghanistan.
So,
I think the army needs to be commended for having commenced, initiated this. Because let us live like neighbors. Forget about, being brothers and this.
the saying goes that good fences make good neighbors.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let the borders be fenced so that the porous borders, that should be thing of the past. And then when you have these proper, entry and exit points, that is where this issue of concern of the FTF would go down. Now, the other thing is, at this time when we are talking, we are being monitored now. You see, in the next maybe 1 hour, or next week or another second week, there will be monitoring teams. There will be teams from all over the world to monitor the elections. They are already here. Few of them are here. Now, what they are doing is that there are certain candidates who are fighting elections, and their credentials are not very clear. From where are they getting their funds? So this is something which the other teams, other groups in the United States and the European Union are watching as to from where are they getting these funds. Meaning, we want to mainstream them, as Banday Saab was saying, but the thing is, look at the slogans which they are raising. Why are they doing this thing? Why is the Election Commission allowing these individuals to take part? Because they have not shunned their what you call extremism, the bigotry. The other thing is, which you and I, or I think anybody cannot do anything about it, are the unresolved regional issues in this part. The Kashmir issue and the unstable Afghanistan for the last maybe 4 decades. Unless these issues are addressed, you cannot.
It will be an uphill task.
It's an uphill task, but then you said you cannot. The elements in this country or in Afghanistan, which are directly linked with Pakistan, cannot be convinced to lay down arms and be mainstreamed.
Well, sir, we leave it at that. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for taking out the time and sharing your views with PTV World. Well, you heard the conversation, and as always, we like to say that please draw your own conclusions from what you've heard, but our honest hope and our prayer is that Pakistan does take all those steps that are necessary to remove the perception of Pakistan being a supporter of terrorism. That is extremely important. Pakistan has done a lot to fight terrorism, and that message needs to be understood by the rest of the world, and indeed we need to take the steps that allow us to do that. With that hope and on that note, it's goodbye.